We interrupt this inconsistent series of Harry Potter book reviews with some book-breaking news, because coming from the greatest young adult author of my generation, Rick Riordan has released yet another Percy Jackson book in the Senior Year Adventures trilogy. At least, I think that's what it's called, and I've just got to talk about it. So sorry, Half-Blood Prince. I promise your video's coming, but a different type of Half-Blood's going to take your place today, because coming off the heels of Chalice of the Gods, Percy Jackson and the Wrath of the Triple Goddess has a lot to live up to. But will it? Let's talk about it. So for the most part, I enjoyed Chalice of the Gods. I've reread it a couple times since I posted my review for it, which you should check out after this, if you haven't, and I still stand by most of what I said in there. I wouldn't say that Chalice of the Gods or this book, Wrath of the Triple Goddess, is on the level of the main series, at least in terms of like the fun adventure aspect, but it could be argued that it doesn't need to be. But what is Wrath of the Triple Goddess even about, you ask justifiably, as I have been known to skip the synopsis many times before? Well, this book, just like the last one, focuses on Percy having to complete a quest for a god in order to earn a letter of recommendation so that he can bypass Zeus or Jupiter's stupid rules about his ability to attend New Rome University, which is the college for demigods that allows them to live free of monster attacks and actually learn to become adults. And of course, it wouldn't be a Percy Jackson book without Annabeth and Grover there to, like, help Percy on his way, and I put help in quotations because, don't get me wrong, Annabeth continues to hold it down in this book, but this book was yet another rough outing for Grover, and he does have his moments in it, but overall he's kind of making me miss the rest of the 7. Anyway, the god du jour for this book is Hecate, which I think was an awesome choice. I don't know how many of us thought, like, this book would be our Percy Jackson Halloween special, but that is what we got. And with Halloween approaching, and the gods' tendency to make everything about themselves, Hecate is going to take advantage of Percy's position to ask him to house sit for her, as she goes on tour of the world, partaking in, like, these various Halloween traditions, all of which she believes are designed to worship her. And of course, nothing ever goes easily for Percy, and tasked by Hecate to take care of not just the house, but Hecate's pets, Percy finds himself on the hunt for a runaway hellhound that used to be the Queen of Troy Hecuba, and a polecat that is a transformed witch named Gale. And if he fails, he's gonna have to face the wrath of the gods. Again. So with that synopsis out of the way, let's get into what worked and didn't work for me in this book, starting with Percy Jackson himself. This shouldn't really come as a surprise to anybody, but Percy Jackson was my favorite childhood character. His series was also the thing that hooked me on, like, how good a first-person narration style could be. And during my review of Chalice of the Gods, I talked about how much I enjoyed getting to be back in Percy's head after, like, the long third-person narratives that were the Heroes of Olympus series. And that still applies to Wrath of the Triple Goddess as well. I mean, Percy's commentary is still filled with terrible jokes, and I'd say somewhat witty remarks, though due to the fact that he actually personally cares about these quests, his trademark, like, sarcasm mixed with indifference to how bad situations get is actually not as present in this book because he does want to succeed. And unfortunately, I did miss that a lot. One thing that did stick out with me when it came to Percy's thoughts, though, is that there is a lot of repetition in them. Like, I know the age group that this book was designed for may appreciate them, but I feel like Rick constantly returned to one well in particular for, like, a laugh, and while it was kind of funny the first time, it ended up being dry by, like, the 18th time it was brought up. But more than his humor, what Percy as a character has always flourished with is his relationships with the cast of characters he meets. And this book is no different. Percy's ability to, like, empathize with others is brought up and paid off repeatedly in this book, and I love that Riordan continued with that trend, as it was always the, like, way that Percy's over-it personality mixed with his genuine desire to help other people that made him such an entertaining character to me. And speaking of empathy, let's take a moment to talk about Grover, who shares an empathy link with Percy and was forced to feel Percy's frustration with him multiple times throughout this book, and he should be grateful that he didn't have to feel mine, because, alright, last time I made a video on Percy Jackson, I talked about how, of the trio, Grover was my least favorite, and it wasn't exactly close, and this book did not do Grover any favors. And look, I know that in so many times the original series, the side problems of the book were caused by decisions made by Percy and Annabeth, but there was something uniquely stupid and frustrating about the problem that Grover caused in this book that made my eyes roll so hard I thought they might fall out of my head. And like, the crazy thing about it is that I think Rick even predicted the frustration in his story, because he references multiple times that Hecate might have been setting Percy and his friends up to fail by presenting them with these difficult choices. But I think it was just the dumbness of the challenge Hecate presented to Grover that really upset me. Like, yes, Grover does have some great moments in this book, like him grounding himself and all those scenes at the perfume shop. Those were great. But his moping and like woe is me-isms about like his failures, just it really did not work for me. And what sucks is that Grover is actually a really awesome character, and I just want to see him in a more positive light more times in the series. Annabeth, on the other hand, had a pretty good showing in Chalice, and she continues that in this book, as she presents many of the solutions to the problems the trio face, which is pretty normal for a character. And one thing that I always appreciate about how Rick writes Annabeth is that he always manages to incorporate Annabeth's dreams or interests into the story, and in Wrath of the Triple Goddess, Annabeth's passion for architecture comes in handy in a big way, though the solution was a little more convoluted than what seemed to be necessary, because you see, Percy Jackson as a series has been around for nearly 20 years, and I honestly think that it's starting to suffer from like the comic book issue, where you start to wonder why a certain superhero doesn't just ask another one for help. And what I mean by that is there are multiple times that a problem occurs in this story, and I couldn't stop myself from thinking, oh, Hazel or Nico could probably solve this problem in an instant. Maybe send them an iris message, or, I wonder if anyone from our camp full of kids with magical powers might be able to help make this situation easier for us. And yes, I know that it can't be done in order to preserve the inner workings of the story, but I think what made it worse in this book than any others was that Percy continuously name drops his friends throughout the entirety of the novel. And speaking of friends and allies, we do actually get to see Chiron again, which I like because he's one of my favorite mentor characters, but there was this reveal about him that we get in the book, and it seemed as if like Rick was worried that we weren't as endeared to Chiron anymore, and it was just wholly unnecessary, made Percy look unsympathetic, and also like went against one of the main messages of this book, making it feel really forced in. But moving past like small gripes, I can say that Rick's writing style and pacing are as punchy and well-paced as ever. I finished the book cover to cover in one day and enjoyed it like thoroughly all the way through. Rick knew he wasn't working with a premise that would benefit from being overly drawn out, and like he executed that well. It actually ties with Sea of Monsters, I think, in terms of like length, making it the shortest book in the series. And honestly, I appreciate when authors have the guts to do that and do it well, because like no one likes a drawn out book. Choice and regret are like the main motifs of this book, and both of them are also really well executed throughout the story. There are some absolutely like beautiful mother-son moments in this book where Percy realizes just how much he's like put his mom through the years, and the way Sally, who continues to just be the best character in the whole universe, just dismisses the idea that she regrets Percy being born or being Percy's mom. It's just so beautiful. Like, yes, there's a lot of struggle that happens with being a demigod's parent, but I just love how Sally just reassures him, I don't regret any of the choices I made in my life for a second. Grover also has some great moments where he expresses regrets and fears of not being able to follow Percy and Annabeth to New Rome if all goes well, and the way he feels like he might even have been holding himself back because of that was also like one of his like saving graces as a character throughout this book. And even Hecate was a very welcome addition to the cast of gods that we haven't yet had much access to. And I love the way that Rick played with the fact that even though she is the goddess of choice, she suffers from so many regrets that she's almost trapped by them. And the way that Percy helps Hecate move past those choices was actually really well thought out and ingrained in the story. Like, it didn't just come out of nowhere. It was actually placed there and evolved over the chapters. The most masterful execution of these recurring ideas, though, are without a doubt Gale and Hecuba. And while I can't reveal everything about their characters in this review, I can say that the way that these two characters evolve over the course of like 200 or so pages does nothing but speak to the quality of character writing that Rick is capable of. And Rick is also like the master of callbacks, and while Cersei's Island seems to be Rick's like overworked milk cow at this point, I can't say I don't appreciate how much effort he puts into making his world feel connected, even if at times certain locations are becoming overused. Overall, my most simplified review for this book is that it was a fun read. Like, yes, part of me really misses the days of being in middle school and tearing open the latest Percy Jackson and the Olympians book to see what grand quest Percy was going to undertake in it. But that's not what this specific trilogy of books is about. Like, last book provided a really important lesson on age and the struggles and obligations tied to the inevitable fact that one day you grow up. And this book, in many ways, was a lesson on choices and doing whatever you can to live a life without regret. So yes, these books are written in Rick's signature young adult flair, but in a lot of ways, I feel that they are meant for fans of the original series who are now in their mid-20s and deep into the swings of adulthood. So is Percy Jackson, Wrath of the Triple Goddess, my favorite Percy Jackson book ever made? No. But it is without a doubt a really fun page-turner with some impactful moments that I highly recommend you head over to your local bookstore and pick up. Especially if, like me, Percy Jackson is still one of your favorite protagonists ever, because I promise you, the book will not let you down. Go out there, buy it, have fun with it, read it in a day. You'll enjoy it, take in the lesson, it'll be a good time. Hey there guys, Jared here. Thanks so much for watching this review. If you don't know, I aspire to be a published author myself someday, and in order to hone my skills and in honor of spooky season, which is coming up real quick, I published a short 5-chapter novella on Wattpad. Gotta be honest, I don't use the platform much, but if you have the time, it would be great if you could check it out and let me know your thoughts on it. The link will be in the description box below if you're interested. Also, if you're not looking quite to leave YouTube just yet, might I suggest that you check out my Chalice of the Gods review, which is on screen now. And of course, don't miss out on my latest entry into the Ranking Potter series, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. But whatever it is that you choose to do next, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and until next time, peace.